Welcome to this new episode of Nerds and Friends. I'm Josh Lindquist, and my co-host Will Shaw is here. Our third co-host, Carey DuVal, will be jumping in momentarily. But we have J.E. Taylor with us today to talk about her books, and we're very excited to have you on the podcast. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's delightful to be here on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, great way to spend a Friday, right? Talking about writing and books. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And Will, I got to say before we begin, I'm loving the shirt. That's great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, very cool. And J.E. Taylor, I love your background. Your house is really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was a lovely background that Zoom put behind you. It's so put together.
I like that. This is actually real.
Nice.
I can't turn the fan on from here.
Actually, recently I've been asking our guests to not have fans on because we had a guest author on the show with epilepsy, and that could be a trigger to viewers, I guess. I had no idea. So
I had no idea on that either. That's kind of interesting.
So we learned something new. We want everyone to be able to enjoy the podcast equally. So it's good that the fan is off. I hope you're not too hot.
Yeah, no, it's cold here. So.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
I'm up in New Hampshire, so.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
At the edge of the White Mountains, and there's like lots of snow out there.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, let's jump right in. Tell us about your book, Season of the Dragons.
Okay, well, Season of the Dragon, it's a trilogy.
Awesome.
Dragon Tempest, Dragon Storm, and Dragon Dawn are the three books that comprise of it, and it's a post-apocalyptic urban fantasy.
Ooh.
Sorry. that takes place in New York City.
Oh, very cool.
My main character is a woman who survived the pandemic, and because of the pandemic and everybody being quarantined, the monsters woke and came to the surface and decided they wanted to rule the earth. So this is humanity's fight against the monsters.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's basically Independence Day meets Godzilla.
That's awesome.
With dragons.
With dragons.
Yes.
That's fantastic. You don't see too much urban fantasy. Like that's a really cool way to do it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, urban fantasy is easier for me because I'm not creating the world.
Right.
I'm creating the rules and manipulating this world.
Yeah, which that's a really fun thing to do, to just explore reality and bend it and tweak it and stuff. That's great.
Yeah. So that's interesting that you're using like a cultural touchstone moment that we're actually still in the middle of as a reference point for that book.
It was fun. I mean, because I got the covers right after the pandemic, and I was like, ooh, I have a thought. What if?
Yeah. That's an interesting idea. And like, I guess when you bring it up, I would have expected to see a lot of media that kind of has this type of, because this is going to be something that like the entire planet can relate to in a way. But I haven't seen a whole lot of media created around that.
Well, I think, it like the Spanish flu in the early 1900s, it was kind of taboo to write about during the time. and I figured by now it would be done. Not.
If only.
Yes, exactly.
Like, there's no way this will last 2 years.
I know.
It looks like Carey's here, so we'll introduce him real quick, and then I have a few more questions about your book because I'm really intrigued by the concept. It's very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's Carey DuVal.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Carey, this is J.E. Taylor, our author guest today.
Oh shit! Sorry, I think my sound's fucked up. It's trying to come out through my mic. Give me a sec.
Yeah, you're good. We curse a lot on this podcast, and just throwing that out there if you'd like
That's
to join us.
okay.
In that.
I'm a co-host of Spilling Ink that airs on Saturday night. So
Nice.
And it's a live show.
Nice.
Oh,
Nice.
very nice.
So yeah,
This
not live
is,
on tape.
Yeah, with
But-
this show, because I'm technically inept, it is essentially a live show because I don't really edit it at all because I don't know how.
Right.
So I'm the wrong kind of nerd. I'm the lore and fantasy nerd, not
Okay.
a computer nerd. So wrong kind.
I'm a little of all.
That's
'Cause
good.
I started out in communications and television, so I have a little bit of. It's been a while. I probably wouldn't know today's technology, but if you gave me a tape machine, I could finagle
Nice.
it to
Okay.
here and beyond. So
Yeah,
And-
just sit in the back room cutting the frames,
yes,
taping
or
the.
actually writing down the timings
Oh,
and then giving it to the film editor that did it at night. But
That's
tape
hard.
together all the,
Oh,
the
yeah.
celluloids.
Exactly.
Oh,
I wanted
awesome.
to point out that we have a cameo of Carrie's dog Havoc in the bottom right of his screen, being adorable over
Havoc.
there.
What's up,
Oh,
dude?
there's the little face. Love it.
Havoc just being Havoc over here.
Yep. That's funny.
So Carrie, we're diving into J.E. Taylor's trilogy, Season of the Dragons, which is a post-apocalyptic urban fantasy where, due to the pandemic, monsters are coming to take over the world. And I love this concept. I can't wait to read the books. And so we're just asking
Awesome.
her all about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got dragons that basically made our world or our human abilities to fight back a non-event because they ruined all of our military installations. And so
Excellent.
we're in trouble.
That sounds like a really interesting concept. I dig it.
Yep, and one my main character finds a weakness of one of the other monsters. Otherwise, they don't have any weaknesses,
Mhm.
not even to dragon fire. So her weakness her discovery makes it possible for humans to survive, but it's
Mhm.
not easy.
That's good.
Nice. How far along in the Dragon Apocalypse are we when the series starts, and like what's the time frame of the books that you have?
The series starts after all of the military stuff has been wiped out, with my main character being drawing the short stick and having to go negotiate a peace deal with the monsters.
Ooh.
So that's where we start, is her showing up and having to do that. I mean, all of the emissaries that were sent before her were toasted.
That's a great
So-
intro, just starting out with her being given this horrible, daunting task.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
That's a great start of a story. I love that.
Yep. So it was fun to write.
Oh, I bet.
Lots of interesting dynamics between her and the dragon.
So the dragons are sentient in this world?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, we have dragons, Leviathans, and the Serpent King. The Leviathans and the Serpent King are the ones that really have to go. And the dragon, the one that pairs up with her, basically turns his back on the other monsters because he doesn't agree with their
Their new dominion and slaughter of Earth.
Yes, pretty much.
That's a
He's
great
He's
concept.
like, wait
I
a
love that.
minute. I
Well,
think I'm
how
on the wrong
does-
side.
Well, how does the diplomacy of dragons go? How does it unfold?
Well, she's brought into Grand Central Station because that's big enough to house
Mhm.
monsters.
Nice.
Because I needed something tall, but empty. So they go in there and he presents her with a collar because he wants humankind to be slaves. And she basically tells him to fuck
Nice.
off. So
Nice.
she, being the one to do the diplomacy, have diplomacy was probably a mistake. Because she
I gotta
doesn't
imagine
know.
that there's not a whole lot of volunteers to go right into the lion's den, though.
No, and the other people who have come before her didn't survive it, but they groveled. She didn't. So she was just like, and she was fascinated with the dragon the first time she saw him because
Oh.
she didn't see it. She hasn't seen him up close, and seeing their scales up close just fascinated her, and that irked the dragon a little bit.
So because there was curiosity mingled in with the fear and kind of respect, they were able to form some kind of relationship. And
right.
that's cool. I like
But
that.
their trust is continually tested.
I'm sure.
And they butt heads because he's a shifter. He is a shifter.
Oh, so he could take on human form.
And yeah.
Nice.
So the fact that he shifts in front of her and she recognizes him, that doesn't go over well either.
Ooh, that's a whole nother
Very
element that
interesting.
dragons can look human.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was a fun book to write.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm very much enjoying the idea that that these beasts had to take on that they've had to take over these large structures in order to actually like live. And I'm thinking of a couple of jokes like, oh yeah, move into Met Stadium, they're not using it, or something like that. Like, just like, yeah, oh yeah, the dragon that's taking over Fenway Park. He took over a green monster took over the green monster.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and they're incredibly fun.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. So is this just a genre that you have related to, or like how much in this? Go ahead.
Let's see. That was the Dragon Dawn was my 60th book, and then I wrote a short story after that.
Whoa, 60th.
60th. So
Wow.
urban
Nice.
fantasy, paranormal romance, supernatural suspense. It's all there, and a lot of dark veins of stuff. So
That's awesome. Well, tell us. I just recently published my first book, so I'm like 60th. I'm like, let me bow to you. So, what's kind of your writing routine to crank out so many books? I'm curious. I mean, you must be doing like 4 to 5 a year. Like, I'm blown away by this. Wow.
Yeah, 4 to 5 a year because I've only been writing for 14 years, and I have a full-time job.
Wow. Oh, so you're cranking those out with a full-time job?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yes, and my children now are grown and out of the house, so that helps.
Wow, I'm so impressed. I gotta say, that's brilliant.
Oh, thank you. It's people are like, oh, you should write a book about writing. I'm like, I just sit down and I write. there's no formula. It's just doing it every night. Showing up at the computer, getting some words down, and it could be 5 words, it could be 5,000 words, but just getting them down a little every night. I'd like to get to the point where I'm not writing on the weekends. But that I'm not there yet. Although we do some things, I have to pay attention to my husband sometimes.
Yeah.
Just sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, I'm sure Carey has a good question because Carey's almost done with his first book, and it's coming along stunningly well. And
okay, yeah, if you're gonna, don't pump me up too hard. But I appreciate your style of writing because it sounds like what Stephen Pressfield talked about in The War of Art, which is like basically a pamphlet, but what he talked about was he just kind of hit this point where he knew what he needed to do was write. And he just sat down on the floor with a typewriter all night, cranked out, a bunch of pages of writing, and then he threw them all immediately into the trash because they were garbage. But he had built that like want and that need to keep writing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's the whole, yeah, sorry.
no, it's that press forward. It's very interesting. The other thing about that was I've had a lot of friends tell me about that conversation between George R.R. Martin and Stephen King, where Stephen King says, writing is my job. I wake up in the morning and I start writing. I know I have to get 3,000 words a day. And at the end of the day, I crack a beer and I hang out with my wife. And that is a fascinating way of doing things.
Yeah, and thankfully my husband reads most of my stuff. Although lately he's gotten to, when I send the book to him, he doesn't tell me he's reading because he doesn't want me to go, what do you think? What do you think?
Yeah.
And then after he's like, or he'll say something, well, but at this point, he's not reading them until after they're out. So he's not a beta reader of mine.
just like she's asleep and then like whipping out the flashlight and being under the sheets like yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, that's funny. So I wanted to ask your protagonist in the Season of the Dragon series.
Yes.
If your protagonist had to play poker with the main character of the last TV show you watched, how would that go down? But I also think maybe you're not watching much TV because you're writing so much.
Yeah, I'm like I'm trying to think of the last TV show I actually watched. TV show.
Or book series that you read.
Well, I'm just thinking the last TV show I watched, I think, was Last Man Standing.
Oh, I've actually had the pleasure of meeting Tim Allen a number of times. He's a super nice guy.
Because I'm like, we watched a movie. No, but Last Man Standing.
That's a fun show. I like it. Yeah.
It absolutely is. So how would a poker game go? Oh, the snark would be just flying.
Yeah. That's awesome.
The snark would just be going back and forth because she's a pretty snappy character on that. And she's lucky. So I think she would win.
That's awesome.
She's still alive. So
she's alive with dragons. Yes. I think she could beat Tim Allen at poker.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the other, if I was saying the movies, the last movie I watched was Jurassic World.
Nice.
The one where they brought the dinosaurs to the mansion. So I watched that the other night.
Nice.
That's what kept me up way too late on the night before we flew home.
That's got to be interesting. Does like dragon negotiations translate to dinosaur negotiations?
Well, if dinosaurs could think and talk, and actually Blue can in a different way, but he's intelligent or she's intelligent. But with the dinosaur talking, the leviathans can talk, the sea serpent can talk, because obviously they've given complete complete instructions of what they expect the human race to do. Even though they'd really like to stomp us out.
I think your stories would make a cool screenplay for a miniseries or a movie. Sounds like it's a fun setting. I mean, expensive to produce, but it sounds really fun. It'd be exciting.
It would be. I would love that.
That'd be awesome.
I love a movie. I think, because it takes a lot of it takes place in the subways.
Oh, okay.
So, because humans use that to travel, because dinosaurs can't or not dinosaurs, monsters can't.
They can't fit in there. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
they
Oh,
can't
smart.
fit in there. But their babies can. So, they're
Oh.
sending their babies in at times. So,
Ooh, nefarious.
yes,
Nefarious.
yes, yeah.
Well, from a
So-
producing standpoint, having things filmed in the subway, that makes it a lot more doable from a storytelling standpoint and
Eh,
filmmaking.
Yeah,
It's,
true.
you can set that up on a soundstage and
Yeah.
reuse different angles and stuff. So my producer brain is going like, oh, we could do this. Okay. That'll
Well,
save some cost,
The torching of the build. Well, actually, you could do that in a miniature. You could torch
Yeah.
them. Yep. I'm thinking of when the dragon flies over and does damage.
I'm sure they'll be happy that I'm plugging this. I'm currently a consultant on a Godzilla fan film.
Ooh, nice.
So I'll include that in the link in the description. But they're looking to use miniatures for a lot of their action sequences, and it's pretty.
I am so sorry, Josh, but this is just my brain. You said Godzilla fan film, and my brain went to a bunch of little fans running down like a model, and like one giant desk fan that's just like being slammed into all the models. And
I love that.
I'm going to pitch that as an alternative because that's brilliant, Carey. From the mind of Carey DuVal. It could be, instead of the rampage, the fan page.
The fan page. There you go.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. That'd be perfect for YouTube.
Yeah,
it really would.
And here's the subtitle: "The winds have changed."
Good one. Good one.
I like it.
That's fun. All right.
I had a quick question for you before we end this interview, because we really appreciate your time on this. But I was going to ask you, are you an outliner, or do you just kind of go like that? I know they split it up into, what is it, plotters and pantsers. I wanted to see where you fall on that.
I have an idea and I run with it.
That's
and
awesome.
Sometimes it's the beginning, sometimes it's the end of the book, and I just go like crazy. So I found outlining, if I'm outlining the book, it's really tedious and I lose the magic. Just put it that way. I have written from an outline with my son. When he was 12, he wanted to write a book, and I told him to write an outline, and we wrote a series together.
Oh,
Death
that's
Chronicles.
cool.
Yep. Yeah. So the first 3 books in the Death Chronicles are a collaboration between us, and then the last 4 were mine.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah. No, I have outlines that I just sort of like, and I have covers for the book, but the cover isn't as enticing now that I have things. I took a course on outlining, and I did the outline of the book thinking it would be all exciting and stuff, and now I'm like, yeah.
There's no substance there.
Exactly. I sort of basically told it all in the thing, so it's just, now wrote and I'll get to it someday. But right now it's, my next book's coming out in April, and that one's a fun one writing. That's a vampire hunter, a vampire huntress, I should say. And things go seriously wrong. So
always a good time.
yes.
Yeah, it doesn't make for a great narrative if everything just goes well.
Oh, I know. But the hunter becomes the hunted. Put it that way.
Good plot.
That's exciting.
So it sounds like you've done a couple of longer series, like not outlining. Do you ever know how many books a series is going to be, or do you kind of think that far ahead, or you just kind of play it by ear until it's?
The idea when I have it is usually the overarching arc. Usually now it's like, oh, okay, this is a big idea, so I need to break it into little ones, with little things. Sorry, that was my husband.
Hello.
So, yes, and but sometimes I'm not sure. Like like my Steve Williams series, it was one of my earlier ones. I had 3 books planned. It ended up being a 6-book series. You know, and
Nice.
all, I mean, it's an FBI agent going after serial killers. So
Oh, cool.
yes. So, you know, that you know, each of the stories took it on its own life. And one of the characters from the first series, I blended in like the 3rd book. So, you know, blended 2 series and then went from there.
Oh, that's cool. Crossover.
Oh
I
yes,
like it.
a lot. I have a lot of crossovers into that web of games and Steve Williams series. So
That's cool. I like that.
thank
Awesome.
you.
Well, we really appreciate your time. This was a super fun interview. We created a
you.
new monster film with fans. We
Yes.
talked about
Mhm.
writing. We heard about your awesome Season of the Dragon series. Everyone who's listening to this, there'll be a link down in the description of the podcast with links to all of J.E. Taylor's books. So we really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Josh.
Of course. Thank you, Carey and Will, for joining me on this awesome podcast.
Yeah.
I'm going to go
Thanks for
ahead.
talking to us.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.